everyone, today we are going to be making these fun geometric peyote triangle earrings and a matching necklace. Today I'm going to be using mostly 11/aught Miyuki Delica beads, and I have those in 4 colors. I have a gunmetal, I have a matte metallic silver, I have a salon gray, and I have a galvanized silver. And since they're all gray or silver beads, I will be referring to them as gunmetal, matte, salon, and silver. I also have a few of these oval-shaped 4mm hematite beads, and you're also going to need a pair of French hooks, 3 wire guards, and a 4mm jump ring. For my thread today, I've chosen a 6-pound Fireline Smoke, and I've got a few feet of it threaded onto a big eye needle. I'm going to be using some of this 24 gauge craft wire, a thread zapper for my Fireline, a pair of needle nose pliers, round nose pliers, and wire cutters. I will be using this pre-made necklace cord, and as usual I've got my handy dandy jump ring opener. So to start off, I am going to pick up 1 gunmetal bead, 1 matte bead, and 1 salon bead, and I'm going to pull them down until I have just a few inches for a tail. Then I'm going to tie them into a triangular shaped loop. I'm going to put my needle through the salon bead and pull my thread all the way through and give it a little extra tug after that so that we can pull the knot inside of the salon bead. Now I am coming out of my salon bead. I'm going to pick up 1 salon bead and 1 matte bead and go through the next matte bead. Now I'm going to pick up 1 matte bead and 1 gunmetal bead and go through the next gunmetal bead. And now I'm going to pick up 1 gunmetal bead and 1 salon bead and go through the next salon bead. And at this point I need to step up in order to start the next row, so I'm going to go through another salon bead. So now I'm going to pick up a salon bead and a matte bead and go through the next matte bead. And here's our first peyote stitch. I'm going to stitch on a single matte bead with peyote stitch. Now I'm going to pick up a matte bead and a gunmetal bead and go through the next gunmetal bead. Then peyote stitch on a single gunmetal bead. Now stitch on 1 gunmetal and 1 salon bead. And now we peyote stitch on a single salon bead. And now that I need to step up for the next row, I'm going to go through the next salon bead also. I'm going to pick up 1 salon bead and 1 matte bead and go into the next matte bead. I'm going to peyote stitch on 1 matte bead. And then another single matte bead. I'm going to pick up 1 matte and 1 gunmetal bead and go into the next gunmetal bead. I'm going to peyote stitch on 1 gunmetal bead and then another single gunmetal bead. Now I pick up 1 gunmetal bead and a salon bead and go into the next salon bead. Now I'm going to peyote stitch on a single salon bead and then another single salon bead. And since we're at the end of the row again, I'm going to go through the last salon bead in this row also. So this quarter has a salon and a matte bead. And then for this side, we're going to add 3 individual matte beads with peyote stitch. And now you can see the pattern that's emerging. When you get to the corners, we add 2 beads of the corresponding colors for that corner, and then we peyote stitch our way over to the next corner. This corner needs one matte and one gunmetal bead, and we go into the next gunmetal bead. And then for this side, we stitch on 3 individual gunmetal beads with peyote stitch. So for every new row that you put on, you're going to be stitching on 1 more peyote stitch on each side than you did for the previous row. Now for this corner, we'll put on a gunmetal and a salon bead and go into the next salon bead. And for this side, we'll be adding 3 individual salon beads with peyote stitch. And as we keep making our triangle bigger and bigger, the center of our triangle will start popping up a little bit, giving you that 3D look. And since we're at the end of the row again, now we need to step up through that last salon bead. And we're just going to keep with that same pattern for several more rows, adding the corresponding colors for each corner, peyote stitching our way across the solid side, and then adding on our next corner. So here is what it looks like after I've added 2 more rows, and you can see that the center of it is just barely starting to pop up. Now here is what it looks like after completing 12 rows. And the way I like to count out to check how many rows I have is by counting the beads from the center all the way to the edge of one color. So along this side I have 12 beads, and that's how I know that I have done 12 rows. So we're only going to do 1 more row after this, and this is the point where we stop using all those other grays and we switch over to this entire row being the galvanized silver bead. And since this is our last row, we're only going to be putting 1 bead in each corner space. So I'm going to pick up a single galvanized silver and go into the next matte bead. And then for the sides, we peyote stitch on single beads just like the previous row, except for they're all going to be galvanized silver as well. And just remember that when you get to the other 2 corners, you're also just going to be adding a single bead. So for this entire last row, you're only ever picking up 1 bead at a time. So here I have made it all the way around the edge with my silver beads, and I'm going to step up by going into the very first silver bead that we put on. And this is going to be putting us in the perfect place to put on our wire guard. So I'm going to go up 1 leg of the wire guard, down the other leg of the wire guard, and back into that top silver bead. And I'm going to circle around the wire guard a second time just to make sure that it's really secure. You want to pull your thread nice and tight. So now we can finish this thread off by weaving through the peyote stitch section of our triangle. You want to weave through several beads and change directions, and I'm going to put 1 spot in where I do a complete circle around 2 beads so that I can make sure that this wire guard is not going to pull out. And when I think I've gone through enough beads, I'm going to work my thread out to the edge and then burn it off with my thread zapper. And then to finish off the thread in the center, you just need to work your way through just enough beads that when you burn off the excess, you're not cutting super close to the knot. Now I'm going to bust out my craft wire and I'm going to cut like maybe a 6-inch piece off just so that I have a more workable piece of wire. And I'm going to make a loop with my round nose pliers about 1 inch from the end of the wire. Then I'm going to slide my triangle onto that loop. I'm going to clamp down on the loop with my needle nose pliers, and then I'm going to wrap the excess wire right above the loop. And you want to make sure you get at least 2 good wraps around before you cut off any excess with your wire cutters. And after I cut off that little excess piece, I'm going to go in with my needle nose pliers and clamp down on that end to make sure nothing is sticking out to poke anybody. I'm going to add one of my little 4mm hematite beads, put my round nose pliers right above the bead, and then push the wire off to the side. I then put my round nose pliers above that bend in the wire before making my next loop. That way we will have the perfect amount of space underneath of our loop to fit a couple of wraps of wire. Once again, I'll snip off the excess and then I'll clamp down on it with my needle nose pliers to make sure that end is nice and tucked in. And you want to make sure that the loops on this connector piece are at a 90-degree angle from one another so that your earring will hang correctly. So if you're looking at the face of one loop, you'll be looking at the side of the other loop. I'm going to make this triangle into a necklace, so I'm going to grab my 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to use my handy dandy jump ring opener to open that baby on up. I will slide the connector loop on there, and then I will put the necklace inside before I close my jump ring back up. And there you have a lovely necklace, and if you do that a couple more times, you can have a matching set of earrings. For the earrings, you won't need a jump ring. You can just put it right onto your French hook. And you can see that by the time they hit their final size, the center of the triangle is popping up quite a bit and giving it a really nice 3D effect. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial and would like to see more like it, please be sure to throw me a morsel of a subscribe, a crumb of a like, or a tasty tidbit of a comment. And if you really want to support this channel, you can go to my website, Xerelia.com, where I list all of the jewelry items that I feature here, and I also have some patterns and bead kits. I will leave a link in the description for ya. Okay, bye!